So, thinking about the legal elements that I alluded to earlier on, it's the Medicines Act from 1968, which still is the main act of Parliament. Although it seems a very old act, there have been lots of amendments to it over the years, which enables you to prescribe as a nurse or an allied health professional. At the moment, I think there's talk of a new Medicines Act being developed, but we're not at that stage as yet. It's important that you're aware that what you're doing as a prescriber is bound by the law. It's not just something the Department of Health has said or your local practice has said. It goes right back to the law of the land. So really important that you're aware of that. The Misuse of Drugs Act from 1971 added to the original Medicines Act tougher layer of controls for those drugs which could potentially lead to abuse, the controlled drugs. So that's where your misuse of drugs legislation lies in that additional part of the Act. So licensing of drugs, I'm sure you're aware that drugs that we see commonly prescribed and used by patients are usually licensed. So why is it important that drugs are licensed? What's the system? What quality does that give to us? It can assure you to a point that the drug is safe for use, for you to prescribe. In paediatric prescribing, however, most drugs are used for children are not licensed because of the ethical issues of prescribing for children and conducting trials for those drugs that were to be prescribed. So there's an expectation that there's good practice which the Children's BNF uses based on adult trials, but it's very important if any adverse reaction occurs or a side effect is noted for a child, that it's always reported through the ADR yellow card system, so that an improving pool of knowledge about the behaviour of children with certain drugs and how the drugs affect children is built up, because ethically research can't usually be undertaken. So licensing is very important, and the license applies for this country. So licenses that on drugs, say for America for example, don't apply to this country. We have to only use drugs which are licensed in this country. And in very specialised areas of practice, you may find you come across drugs that has a USA licence but doesn't have a UK licence. So they'll be being used in this country off licence. And with that comes extra accountability for the prescriber. They need to acknowledge that they're prescribing something which hasn't got a licence in this country. But it doesn't mean to say that it may not be a very useful drug, but it's something that must be borne in mind by those who are prescribing. So if a drug has a marketing authorisation or licence, its conditions are known, it's been researched thoroughly, and in fact it's really a guarantee from the company to cover patients for compensation if any harm is done, particularly if it's been used within the stipulations of that marketing authorisation. Obviously, if it's used outside of its marketing authorisation or licence, then that isn't a guarantee that it will be covered. And that is the big crux, really, of what a nurse prescriber or any other prescriber has to consider when they're prescribing off licence. And it's a worry sometimes in palliative care, sometimes in paediatrics, drugs may be used outside their product licence. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't or cannot use them. You just need to be aware of the extra legal implications of doing so and the accountability issues. It's not enough to say that's what the doctor normally does. You've got to be fully clear about the implications of prescribing a product outside of its product licence or its marketing authorisation. Going on to off-label and off-licence medications, we think we've really covered the off-licence issues. The things that you can do though, if you are prescribing off-licence, to protect yourself or to be reassured, particularly in paediatrics where most of the drugs are off-licence, that you're working within acceptable practice. Use your children's BNF, or if it's in palliative care, use the adult BNF. Look at other sources of information, such as the summary product characteristics. Look at medicines compendiums, those sorts of things, to give you the extra evidence to support what you're intending to use the drug for. The other term on this slide is off-label, which is different to off-licence. This is where a drug has got a licence for use in the UK, but you're actually using it for a different condition. So for example, if you're using amitriptyline, which is a tricyclic antidepressant, and you use it for neuropathic pain, it's not licensed for that, so you're using it off-label, but it does carry a marketing authorisation for the UK. So that's essentially the difference. As I'm sure many of you are aware, amitriptyline is very well known to have that side effect of relieving neuropathic pain, and that's how it came to be used in this off-label way. It isn't necessarily in the best interest of the drug company to spend a lot of time on drug trials to then acquire a marketing authorisation for that use, because it's become custom and practice, and everyone knows in terms of safety profile, side effects, etc., and pain specialists are using it regularly. So that's why it remains off-label, but it is a licensed product.